Well, welcome everybody. I hope you're all having a great Friday. Here we have thunderstorms and it's very dark and loud, but I hope I'm not coming through from the mic. I did a test and it doesn't seem to be, but it's raining pretty hard and thundering and lightning. Kind of fits the mood at the end of the week for this trial. There were in the Masterson trial no witnesses today because there's no court because it is Veterans Day here in America. So I'd like to just say to all veterans, we thank you for for your endeavors, and we feel for you. We think for you. You're always with us. We are honored for your service and we have great gratitude. Um, yeah. Hey, I'd like to say hello to everybody in the chat. Those of you that have come by today. As we spoke about in the middle of the week, in regards to, let's just talk about the witnesses we're not going to hear from of the last 2 days. We're not going to hear from Lisa Marie Presley. As we had stated before, her testimony was mostly going to be in regards to the harassment and in regards to Scientology ordering her to speak with Jane Doe 2. Let's just say that Judge Almeida had a very fine line about it, and I can see why many people are coming out and agreeing with her, and Tony Ortega is one of them. And as I tell you, I do read Tony Ortega's stuff every day. He's like in that courtroom trying to give us a feel for what it's like in there, give us the words, the interactions, the things that are going on during testifying and when not, because they're allowed to stay when the jury gets taken out of the room. They do hear some of the conversations back and forth between the prosecutor and the defense attorney and Judge Almeida. They hear Judge Almeida's rulings, they hear the objections, they hear it all. Um, and he's giving us a good bird's eye view in there. There's many articles coming out from the Beast, Variety, the Rolling Stone. Everybody is trying to fight the Wire. Most not the mainstream media, what I would call, like, you don't see it in the Washington Post until the end of the week or something like that. You don't see it in the New York Times here on the coast every day. Um, but Tony Ortega, every day, several times a day, giving us a snapshot. And I want to commend him for his dedication, not only on this trial, the Masterson trial. Well, if you know Tony Ortega, the underground bunker, he's been on all of the lawsuits and all of this with Miss Cavage's cabal, he calls, for quite some time. And he's doing an excellent job, and he needs to be commended for his dedication to getting the information out there. Um, so again, all his links are in the description as they are in every single video, and I give him great credit. All in regards to Lisa Marie Presley, that testimony or that statement disposition that she gave, they played part of the interview, will be more valuable in the civil suit as it's being reported, because the civil suit is against Scientology and the harassment by the same accusers, Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, and Jane Doe 3. Um, so it's going to be very pertinent over there. But Judge Almeida did rule that because this case is not about Scientology, only Scientology is regards to that the accusers, the victims, were all Scientologists at the time, and so was Danny Masterson, and that there was this feeling they had, they were made to believe, this mindset that they had in common as to why they couldn't come forward. And they're allowed to speak on that, their relationship, that they did report to Scientology, what kept the delay, what caused the delay, or why they felt a certain way, and certain things happened in their behaviors in regards to Danny Masterson and the incidents. And we've seen that. We've seen them stating over and over again how they felt um, less than, that Danny actually was getting the support, and they were actually reinforcing the idea that he was not wrong in what he did in some way, that it was just their duty, that it was a responsibility, that they would be the ones ostracized should they mention it. He's not allowed to report on him, not even allowed to call it a violation, not even allowed to use the word rape, told it was their duty, their responsibility to provide for him whatever he wanted. Mm. Especially if they were in a relationship with him. Okay. And as we saw, Jane Doe 3 was in a long term relationship with him. Jane Doe 1 did think that perhaps they would be in a relationship. Jane Doe 2, not so much. Okay. But was actually still, because of things that had happened to her prior, felt that she was not able to report and that she needed to give in. She just wanted it to be something different than what it was, if you recall. Um, mm, it is it is interesting the way that they use the language here, especially the defense is focusing very much so in the last couple of days on language. He has allowed the testimony of Jane Doe 4, who we're going to mention. Jane Doe 4 is going to be allowed to testify because of the defense's change of tactics in regards to their defense of Danny Masterson. Um, During the trial, they changed the defenses. They went after collusion as if the three were all working together for some kind of gain, and actually said it was monetary gain. That their stories are too similar. There are words that are the same, and even in regards to this, they did do it again with the Jane Doe 4 testimony, which we'll get into in a little bit. But he focuses on when they use different words. He focuses on the reports too, to try to say that they're changing their story or to say that there's too much similarity in their stories. And I think I did say on Wednesday, and I'm going to repeat it again, that D.A. Mueller did a really good job of showing the parts that weren't similar. Okay, in the actual attacks themselves, how it prefers, how they described it, what was going on, what he said, they were all different. Okay, even physical things that he did, actually choking one of them, but none of the others. Actually, dragging one by the hair or slapping in the face, not done with any of the others. Okay, um, the hot tub incident for the one wasn't done with Jane Doe 4 or Jane Doe 3. Okay. It there's just as much not the same as there are similarities. The similarities are Danny Masterson um having something to drink, uh talking about feeling out of control with their body, um, not being able to control themselves, having periods of blackout, not being able to focus, waking up places they weren't before, waking up in periods of undress or completely undressed when they know they went to sleep with their clothes on. These are all similar. hmm a lot of these are very similar. Mhm. And something else that came forward that I noticed in all three of the testimonies of the Jane Doe 1, 2, and 3 was when Danny gets confronted with what's going on, his smugness. He laughed. He said, "Yeah, of course. Like, what do you think?" And yeah, I did this. Or yeah, as if um it was no big deal. And it kind of struck me like the sense of entitlement that's there. Mm, totally, the sense of entitlement was quite unnerving for me. um, in all that I'm reading Antonio Ortega's daily reports, what I'm seeing the other reporters picking up on, I'm not the only one. Mm, um, I don't know. I'm trying my best, as I tell you every time, not to be biased, but we're gonna get into now the testimonies. I know the one you mainly want to hear from right away is gonna be on Jane Doe too. But I want to talk about a little what happened prior to that when they got into the courtroom on Monday. There was a lot going back and forth on what they were actually going to allow and what they weren't. And there was something else that came up, and it was about correspondence from Jane Doe, one's mom, mm, to actually Scientology and back and forth. I think we spoke about this before, that she had actually contacted them. Okay. And it went back and forth. There was also some conversations with the detectives in regards to it back and forth. And what struck me was the defense was really upset that because Jane Doe 2's mom and Jane Doe 2 had talked to third parties, if it was mentioned in any of the correspondence, they didn't want any of that to come forward because it was hearsay. And I understand the hearsay laws, really. But rather than worry about the actual context there, that this is, prior bad acts confirmation that, of the timing, because there's time and dates on emails, kind of solidifies the story a little bit when you've got documentation of it going back and forth between people talking about it that have date stamps on it and time stamps on it. It kind of does, because part of the defense's crosses have been, are you sure about that date? Was it this year? Was it that year? Trying to confuse the witnesses on the stand about which event they're talking about, because all of them had contact on and off with Danny before, after, you know, and during obviously the incident. And he's trying to allude, like, when was that? Was that this year? Was that year? Was this date? Was that date? Um, Quite cleverly, but most of them are able to, like, just see what he's doing. Every single witness got emotionally upset on the stand in regards to the Jane Does. Each one telling their story did have some difficulty at times, and even at cross when he's coming at them, they do try to be very calm and they try to listen very carefully and answer the questions. But I'd have to say the defense attorney has been admonished by the judge several times for the way that he is crossing. Um, and even D.A. Mueller for trying to be overly sensitive to it and get other things in for the jury to see. Judge Almeida has been doing a bang up job, an absolute bang up job in regards to. I can't praise this judge enough for the way she's trying to hold it along. It has to be very difficult with Scientology looming over this case. We can't deny it. They are looming over this case like a big black cloud. And Judge Almeida's doing her best not to let it uh, become the focus, because, in all honesty, that would be prejudicial to Danny Masterson. And listen, the criminal charges are not against Scientology at this time. This case is about Danny Masterson. This trial is a criminal trial about his bad acts. Okay, he's being accused of three three charges of sexual assault without consent, the legal term for rape. Okay. That's what he's being accused of, all right? He's not being accused of being a Scientologist, okay? And he's not even being accused of delaying the women from coming forward and reporting, though that is not in this criminal trial, okay? There's a civil suit against Scientology that is also looming over this trial because it is about the harassment that all three of the women have felt and why they didn't report. That they tried to report through Scientology, they were held back based on their beliefs in their teachings in Scientology. They eventually left the church based, for whatever individual reasons each had. But this incidences that have happened is a big part of it, of course. And they left and they were still harassed. And they were told that they still had to follow the rules, even if they were ex Scientologists. Okay. And unfortunately for the defense, the previous attorneys for Danny Masterson tried to use that as a reason as to why this whole case should get thrown out. In their motion to dismiss on no merit, they actually were saying that because they were Scientologists, they didn't have the right, even as ex Scientologists, to speak against Danny Masterson or make that report, that they violated a contract. And so in came the book of ethics that has that in there with these rulings. And that's how it all got mentioned. And then when Danny got new attorneys, when things weren't going his way, when they lost their appeal to the Supreme Court, that they were being prejudiced as a religion in not being able to hold their contract against ex members, and the Supreme Court came forward and said, Ex members, ex, okay, didn't even get into the legal part of it about, you cannot keep someone from reporting a crime. That's not a legal contract if you ask them to do something illegal. Like, no, 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 no. Okay. And obstruction is illegal. Okay. You just can't. I'm sorry. Anyway, that was a whole nother ball of wax. But that's how we got to the point where Scientology became such a thing with the new attorneys coming in, Philip Cohen and Kieran Goldstein, or his new head, chair one and chair two. And, you know, Philip Cohen keeps saying, I don't want you to mention Scientology. We had a whole big ruling on that, and Almeida has stuck to it. It will only be in reference to the women's testimony in regards to how they felt, or anyone else that they spoke to in regards to it, in regards to the what caused them not to come forward or to feel that the delay happened, and how they felt in regards to the incident, and why they remained in contact with certain people, and why certain incidents happened. It is for their defense also. It is to help with the credibility of the story, because if we don't add that Scientology part, everybody is scratching their head, why 20, why so many years later is this coming forward? 20 years in some cases, some of the incidences 2001, 21 years. Okay, we're looking at a lot of time that passed. Okay, why are charges being filed now? And we needed an explanation for that. Scientology is that explanation. Okay, the teachings, what they were going through at the time, that is all really relevant, and Judge Almeida is letting it in for that, because it is pertinent to their story. It is the reason we're here now instead of 20 years ago. All right. So, she's walking that fine line, and she's doing it judicially with great strength. And I give her credit, because every day she has to admonish someone, either a witness. She is to instruct the prosecution or the defense to admonish a witness about something here or there, about the use of language. Because I got to tell you, y- defense coming out of the box Monday, the defense attorney Cohen had a long laundry list of particular things he's upset about: the use of this word, the use of that word in this, and coming forward with another two requests for mistrial. They both were denied, by Judge Almeida quite quickly and quite soundly with legal precedent. She doesn't just say, "Hey, you're being ridiculous, sit down." She actually throws case law back at him and just, says, "No, I'm sorry." Or, "Yeah, well, you opened that door, you did this, you are actually setting it for what's happening." And it's starting to look to me as a layperson as if a lot of this mistrial request is just his foundation laying it down. Like most of the stuff he does himself and then complains about it. It's almost like he's setting it up. It's like a Hail Mary effort at the end. I mean, is if you request it 11 times within a trial or something, is there a magic bell that goes off and you automatically get a mistrial if you get there? Like, I don't know what he's going for, but it's getting to be a bit ridiculous. I do realize he's trying to put on the best defense for Danny Masterson that he can. I get that. I really do. But it's getting to be tiresome, to say the least. Okay. But anyway, we had more than Jane Doe for witnesses, but we're going to concentrate on that one right now, because there are some differences here that actually matter for the case. Because if the defense is going for collaboration, that these women just organized their stories together, Jane Doe 4 was allowed in because of that, because that directly goes in counter for it. Because number one, Jane Doe 4 is not a Scientologist. She knows Danny Masterson and that whole group through acting. She met him. They did a small indie film together. Okay, and Tony Ortega had permission to use her name, and you can go out there and you can go to his reporting and you can get it. I'm gonna stick with Jane Doe for, because she didn't give it to the rest of the public. She didn't give it to me or anybody else to say. She only spoke with him, and I think he deserves that courtesy. You can go there and you can find her direct name. But she's an actress. She knows him from an indie film that they did. Okay, and that is what led up to this first incident. They all were doing the rap party, and they're all young. They're all very young actors, they're partying. They go to a restaurant, they're having some wine, they're having a good meal, it's everybody from the film. Danny Masterson lives very close to the restaurant. So like everybody, he's got that lovely home and he loves the party. So everybody come back to Danny's house and they're going to have, a more of an after party, an after party. Okay, at Danny's house. Okay. Jane Doe 4 admits to drinking wine at dinner. She admits to having more wine at Danny's house and even smoking a joint with her friend. Justin was his name. He was also in the film. And, they were all talking and everything. She doesn't feel like, she does say she starts to feel like a little woozy. They decide and tired. So everybody is going to stay over. Danny says everybody's been drinking. I got plenty of guest rooms. Everybody from the after party. They're laying out. You know how these things go. They're laying out on couches. They're on chairs. They're on the floor in the living room. They all are going up the stairs to find bedrooms. In Justin and Jane Doe 4 find a bedroom. Okay. Justin takes the bed. Jane Doe 4 falls asleep on the floor. Okay. During the course of falling asleep, she's fully dressed. Okay, Justin is fully dressed. Okay, sometime after, she says she felt a little dizzy. She felt a little out of sorts. She feels herself being tugged on. She wakes up to Danny Masterson trying to pick her up from the floor, telling her she needs to leave the room because Justin's trying to do things to her. And she's saying, no, no, no. And she says this. She says, Justin and I, no, Justin and I both are saying that this doesn't happen. That's the testimony. She says, Justin and I are both saying to him, this doesn't happen. And this is what I mean about Cohen being a nitpicker. He comes in and he goes, objection. Um, she said she's giving testimony about what somebody else said. I'm like, what? That's not how I read it. That's not how Tony Ortega is taking it from the courtroom. That's not even how everybody. I can just imagine if you'll picture with me, everybody just turning their head like a dog on the side, like going, what? Excuse me. She just said we're saying that it's not happening, like because everybody's in the room. Now I get, the semantics of it. Technically, is it hearsay a little bit because she said Justin said, yeah, it could be taken out about that, but she didn't quote him. She didn't quote him. She said we were just reiterating that no, it wasn't happening. And so this is how pedantic Cohen is getting about the language because this is what he's picking on. He's really trying to drill in and find out if they're making up their stories or if there's some hook I can just get this whole thing thrown out. And I can tell you, you can't get it thrown out because she said, because even Judge Almeida said, listen, that's not how we're taking what she said. That's not how the jury's taking what she said. She's saying together there was this thing. She's not even quoting or saying, yeah, she's not. She's not. But so it goes on. Danny does get her up. Justin's sleeping on the bed. She falls back asleep. She wakes up. She says she was halfway down the hallway or down the hallway. She's going in and out. She feels fuzzy. She can't focus. She can't wake up. That's what she's saying. Like she cannot wake up. Okay. She's got that. It's not her usual. She's had wine before. She states that yes, she does drink, and yes, she did have some marijuana, but never has it been like this. Okay, it was the first time she used marijuana though, and so that came up and that became a focus for a little while in the cross. But currently during this story with Da Mueller, he walks her through it. She does admit to being very spotty in her memory. So they try to focus on only those things that were clear. Okay. And she does, she says that she assumes that Danny helped her into the bedroom because the next memory she has, the one is in the hallway where he has his arms around her waist and he's literally half carrying her, dragging her all down the hallway. She's not able to control herself very well. She's not walking very well, all to the bedroom. All right. The next time she wakes up, she is in his bed and he's on top of her and he is in her. That's how she woke up. And she's like, no. And he just laughs. Okay. And she says, but we don't have protection. And he says to her, diseases are in the mind. Now, that part's from the second incident, I believe, that quote. But that struck me. Okay. Diseases are in the mind. That's a total Scientology thing to say. Yeah. But again, I speak to Danny Masterson's entitlement, and he really doesn't think he did anything wrong based on this reporting, based on what the four women are all saying. All have been heard from Danny Masterson, and the thing is, we may not. That'll be asked next week by the judge to him directly if he wants to testify in his own defense. We'll see, because we don't even know if the three expert witnesses are going to come up when the prosecution, when the defense takes over next week. But right now with Jane Doe Fall, she's going to tell this story, and D.A. Mueller walked her through it carefully. He was very specific. He To make the allegation of without consent, he made sure, what did you say? Did you say no? She said yes. I was saying as soon as I knew, I was like, stop. No, I tried. She tried to push him off. Yes, I did. And she says she felt weak. She couldn't control herself. Where your arm? Did you feel like you could move your arms? She said no. Did you feel like his whole body weight was on you? She said yes. Did you feel, you couldn't get away? Yes. She's saying all of this. And goes through the whole thing, because in prior testimony with the other Jane Doe's, in cross defense attorney Cohen tried to bring up, like, were your arms actually pinned down, you know could you have used your, like all of this, like, didn't you fight back kind of stuff, typical, unfortunately, typical cross, typical. Mm, Trying to get under their skin, trying to make it like, you really didn't do anything about it, kind of bullshit. Forgive me, but yeah, that's where my head goes. Typical bullshit. And Judge Almeida has pushed it back every time, because, as I keep telling you, in California, there are actual protections for the victims for that kind of stuff. You're not allowed to bring up their prior sexual history. They're not allowed to bring up other habits and things like that, only pertaining to the issue. So Cohen's trying to get them on semantics for words, like, where was your arm? Where was your leg? What were you doing? Like, he's really drilling in. And I have to give credit to the witnesses. They're able to answer for everyone. And they're careful not to get themselves hung up with things. They're like, I told you, I really have a foggy memory. There are clear spots and there are not so clear spots. And that can be to their credit and also their detriment, because for their credit, they're at least being incredibly honest and trying really hard to answer his questions as calmly as they can, knowing that he's trying to unravel everything, and trying to lay out that they're not credible, knowing that they're getting attacked. They are trying to be reasonable and calm and answer and not give him anything to go after. I can't even imagine how difficult that is for anyone on a witness stand, to have somebody coming at you like that. Well, for Jane Doe Fall, she kept herself quite calm about it. She did get upset a couple of times in talking about the incident itself, about the helplessness of it and everything. And so they get to the end of the story, well, the end of this event, and D.A. Mueller's like, what happened when you woke up? She said, when I woke up, I was actually completely naked. Now, she says during the incident, when she woke up, she felt like she still had some items of clothing on. But when she woke up, she was completely naked. Danny Masterson didn't say anything. She didn't say anything to him. She got up. She tried to. She felt horrible. She says she felt sore vaginally. She said her thighs ached. She noticed bruising later. She said her anus did hurt, but she had nothing there to say that anything happened, nor any recollection. But she did have uncomfortableness there. She said her whole body was sore and ached. Um, she got up and she looked for her clothing, which she has no idea how that got off. She can't remember taking anything off. Or uh, she finds it all over the room, puts it on, and leaves without a word. She goes downstairs. She had not driven herself to this house. She came with people. Someone did give her a ride home. She says she just went home. She didn't talk to anybody. She didn't tell anybody about it. Um, she says that there are other incidences that came up, but before that, defense attorney Cohen tries to bring up that she knew Jane Doe too. Yes, she knew her through another friend. She went to a holiday party and she was at a dinner. Yeah, she was, but they weren't like friends. Friends. They didn't talk about this stuff. Uh, They didn't talk about it together at all. Okay. She saw an article in the paper about the accusations in 2017 that was happening. And she contacted Danny's brother, Chris Masterson, and that came up, and Cohen tried to use that against her. But it sure, like, she lived across the street from them for a little while after this incident at another person in the industry's home. She became displaced through a altercations with an ex, and it was quite a scary time for her. She needed a place to stay that nobody knew about, and she stayed there. And it was across the street from Danny and Chris. Were staying, across the way. And she was talking to Chris. She knew him. Um, and I have to say, like, when Cohen kind of when Cohen kind of like brings it up that, like, how could you, even like send this like support kind of annotation to the brother, like, how does that happen after something like this? Okay. But in her defense, I have to say that she actually took that and actually gave him, like, some fairly good answers about it. Uh, she tried to explain it to him as like trying to trying to actually keep it kind of like she knew other people around them. She had other castmates and friends. The Masterson circle had people that people were trying to say you need to stay away from and things like that. And what said she was trying to do was actually, you know, let me just read. Okay. Hmm. She sent this is what her Facebook message said to her brother. She's to the brother Chris Masterson. It's quote unquote. I saw a fucked up article about Danny and just wanted to send you guys supports. And in other parts of it, they said things like, Chris and Danny were good to her. When my boyfriend cheated on me and I didn't have a place to stay, and I hope you all are doing both well. And she's referring to the time she lived across the street from them in this other person's house. Okay. Now, Cohen's trying to make it like there was no problem between them or anything, and that, like, why would you send a message like that of support through what Danny's going through if you're one of the victims? Okay. And so on redirect, DA Mueller comes forward, and she's trying to he's asking her to please explain why you sent the message. And she said clearly, Danny has friends that I've been warned about. I felt because of his circle of friends that I wanted to keep everything safe for me. Send a message signaling that I wasn't part of it. And I had tried even through those incidents to keep everything friendly because of my fears and also because I didn't want to blow up my world. We have people in common. We had at the time. I just wanted to be able to work in the industry, not have trouble made for myself. And I think it was a pretty major motivator for me to just keep everything friendly and not draw attention, not have anything brought on me. Now, mm, Jane Doe's incident is not being charged against Danny Masterson. She didn't want press charges. But she is going to testify clearly for prior bad acts or prior, not guilty of, but a pattern, and also to the lack of collusion. Because, Jane Doe 4 didn't want to be part of any lawsuit. She didn't want to come after Danny Masterson. She realized who his friends are. And when she says his circle of friends that are bad actors, like, things can happen to you, she's clearly talking about all of the rumors of everything that was happening to everyone else in regards to this case. Now, she made a move to protect herself. Like, you're going to blame her for that? I'm not. I'm going to say, you're in an industry with Danny Masterson, and if you start speaking out, what's going to happen. Then she didn't. Okay. All right. He also, defense attorney Cohen tried to actually focus on another comment she made, that why didn't she like report it? Why didn't she, um, you know, make a bigger deal about it. And she had said, because I was drinking, because I was partying, I felt like, she felt like a little bit less than. She didn't really feel like she was going to be believed. She made the statement that she said, drinking and then sex happens. And he actually made that like she knew it was going to happen, like that she had given permission in some way. And that got taken back really quick by D.A. Mueller and Judge Almeida right away with objections and everything and re-clarified. She's not meaning that she expected it to happen because she was having a few drinks. She meant she didn't think she was going to be believed. And you know what? We're all sitting here, right? And we can kind of say, or Jane Doe 4. Okay, this picture is everywhere, but I'm not going to say her name. But this is in like every article out there. So, I don't feel like I'm violating her privacy. She is a public actress. Her name's going to be all over the place within days. Um, I just feel more respectful not saying it. And I want to keep to the trial with, all the Jane Doe 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're going by initials. People are putting their names out there anyway, and I think it's rather disrespectful. So I want to be extra respectful if I can, even if you all think it's ridiculous. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I really feel for her because I can understand why she did what she did. And now, because she's doing the right thing and coming forward with testimony that can help others that went through it, she's being admonished as if she didn't do enough. Like, why didn't you come forward first? I mean, because truth be told, Scientology really wasn't going to come after her. They didn't know her yet. I'm sure once she placed a complaint about him, they may have. And that's how she felt that they would. Mm, yeah. And can you blame her? Everybody hears the stories. I don't really can't I can kind of understand where she's coming from. And I give her great credit for going through the testimony that she was because, some people are just going to look at her bad for it. She's still going to get the industry mm, harassment. She's still going to get those that are going to go against her for her career. Um, but, with seeing everything that's on, it was time. And I give her a lot of credit for it. Mm. She does report a couple of other incidences, and going to take her off and put Danny back up for these. Okay. She talks about um while she was staying in the house across the street, Danny and Chris being Danny's brother, frequent back and forth. I mean, she's around them a little bit. And she recalls trying to go being in the bathroom with the door open, splashing some water on her face, and Danny Masterson just standing in the doorway, not letting her leave when she was done, and staring at her so coldly. She said it was like ice, and he was intimidating. It was threatening. She felt like it was a message, but she doesn't actually understand what the message was. But she does say that that is a stare that he has been known for, and that she saw before at the restaurant. She saw him staring at her intently several times like that, and she didn't understand. Well, she said she felt intimidated, and she had to ask him to move out of the way, and he wouldn't even say anything. He wouldn't move out of the way. Went on for a little bit just to make her uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Okay. There is another episode. She wasn't going to be allowed to speak on that. Okay. But when defense attorney Cohen brought up in front of Judge Almeida and everybody else that she may have had other contact with Danny Masterson and that she may have been in contact with one of the other Jane Does, he opened the door to talk about what other contact you've had with Danny Masterson. Oops, because it was decided prior that this wasn't going to be discussed. And yet Cohen goes and opens his mouth and boom, it's in again. And he was the one speaking so loudly that it does not come in, that is prejudicial, blah, blah, blah. There's not enough time. You won't let me cross. You won't let me do this. Squawk, a squawk, a squawk. Poor Judge Almeida. Hmm. But anyway, it came in because of him. And also, what came in was the second incident because now they get to talk about what other contact have you had with Danny Masterson. Oh, by the way, he came to my house. He wanted to see me. He brought a flask. I drank from it. And I don't remember much after that, except for I was upstairs in my bedroom. and he was pulling my pants down and attacking me, and I couldn't fight back. And that is the incident, the second incident when she said, "No, you can't do this. Stop. You can't. We don't even have protection. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me." And he's saying, "Diseases are in the mind. He doesn't need it." Mm. And she again passed out, couldn't control herself. There's the influence about the flask. No one's saying that he drugged them, but the same thing keeps happening. So here we have the fourth episode of Danny Masterson with a person having the same kind of scenario where you go out drinking with Danny Masterson and somehow or other you lose consciousness and you go in and out and you got black spots in your memory and stuff like that. Very coincidental, all allegations. I'm not accusing Danny of anything, but the pattern sure the hell is, if I might say. Mm. Another thing that this witness was admonished on the stand right in front of everybody because she said, "How did you?" Cohen asked, "How did you meet Danny Masterson?" And she said, "At a DJ party where he was DJing under, that name we're not allowed to mention." And she got reprimanded for that live. They struck it immediately from the court record. Okay. And then Cohen then says, "Did you, later on the next day when she comes back for testimony again?" This happened on Wednesday. And on Thursday, he says, "Did you have any prior conversations with the investigators?" And she said, "No." Okay. And then he grills her later, like, "You weren't talking to them later?" "Oh, yeah, because the judge ordered the prosecution to admonish the witness not to mention that name anymore, not to do that, because that was not going to be allowed in the courtroom." So she did have a brief conversation with them about that. And that is what Cohen is trying to say. "Oh, you had contact with them. They talked to you about your testimony again?" Like trying to infer to the jury that something was going on when it was really just a direct order of the judge. Talk to her about this, okay? About the DJ thing. The way they twist it's becoming fascinating to me. It really is. I don't know how you guys are looking at it, but to me, uh, I'd have to say Philip Cohen's a very good defense attorney as far as really pulling out anything he possibly can. But at the same time, he's making them look desperate. He's making them look like they don't have a defense. Okay, we get to the end of Jane Doe 4's testimony. Okay. And that is going to be, you know, she's a prior bad acts witness. This is like really strong testimony. It's outside of Scientology. Defense attorney Cohen did not want that second incident in there because the second incident infers, without saying it, it does infer some kind of drugging because she only drank. She was perfectly sober when he arrived. All right. And she only drank from that flask and then does not, and then all of a sudden she can't remember things. Okay. Um, and Judge Almeida was like, listening to his objections, all of this, you know, she allowed Vasey in anyway. She gave him a small victory, that he could only ask Vesey, questions about the first incident, but then Cohen came forward and started talking about previous times, other times that you have been in touch with Masterson and opened the door. So the other incident came in, the incident with the flask that he is now so upset about because she was the only one to drink from it. Danny never drank from it. Why would he bring something that only she was going to drink from? And she doesn't recall him ever drinking. But then she also admits that she was blacking out. She doesn't know if he drank while he was blacked out. I think everybody was kind of confused as to why Cohen would open that door to let all this in because it's quite damaging. It is quite damaging. He's really upset, uh, defense attorney Cohen, and he wanted a mistrial again because he said that all this talk about feeling intoxicating is alluding to things that Danny is not charged with, like drugging people. Uh, But it also states to how they felt the incident occurred. It directly relates to the incident and is totally admissible, regardless of how he feels about what it means to his client. Mhm. Mm. He remember I did say that he was so upset that she was allowed to report something that Justin said when she never said what Justin said. And the judge actually is telling him, listen, that is not what happened. That's your interpretation of it. She said, Justin and I was telling him it didn't happen. Okay. Well, she's not quoting Justin. She's saying like this is something that was going on in the team. It's all about context, and he's really trying to pull that out. But he's gonna keep trying, and I don't know. If this is getting mm, it's almost like a daily occurrence. During the questioning about the bathroom incidents, it really the way the second incident came out um really was kind of weird. And I got this, I didn't see this in any of the other articles I read. I only saw this in Antonio Ortega's reporting of the day. He had said that right after talking about the bathroom incident where he was so at a friend's house and he had blocked the doorway for Vesey in that bathroom and gave her that stare, and it was like a small act of intimidation or threatening or anything. um you know he asked for a sidebar. Defense Cohen asked for a sidebar. He talked with Mueller and Almeida up there, and then all of a sudden, um, DA Mueller went back up to the podium and continued questioning Vesey and started leading her into the second incident, the one that Cohen had fought so hard to keep out. And this is why I say, like, it was his mouth, it was foot in mouth that actually led to this happen because he was actually, didn't want this to happen, but he is the one who opened up the doors. All right, this and Tony Ortega actually made a couple of like funny remarks, like everybody's just looking at each other like, what? I could just imagine. He's quite the expressive. If you watch his videos after every day, and I do recommend that you do, because he gives you some great insight, personal. He knows a lot about Scientology. If you're interested in that angle, he is a little upset about Lisa Marie not being able to testify, although he is also, he kind of understands some of what's the reasoning, as we all do. Like it's going to be better for the other trial. I do hope she does get to testify there, if that does go to trial. Uh, I wanted to remark on Danny's casualness before we finish up for the day. That casualness is being re- recorded repeatedly by the artist who is actually doing the court depictions as we go in the court drawings, and she keeps commonly, like during everything testimony, just he's relaxed, and I'm sure that that is on purpose so that he doesn't, he's trying to put off the air to the jury. He has got nothing to worry about because he didn't do this, right? He's got this real calm effect, but it's kind of unnerving to everybody else, like who's there, that's not sitting behind him as his defense. And yeah, it kind of gets to me. Mm, it kind of gets to me a lot. Mhm. Mm. And the turtle move says, I thought lawyers weren't supposed to ask questions that they don't know the answer to. It would have been helpful for Cohen in that case. Yeah. Hey, Mallory, and so many of you that are here that I didn't get to greet, like Ox and Aaron and Juju and Mrs. Cassandra. Oh my gosh, Grace K, Sean Coffee, Paula, Mocking, Charlie. Oh, I'm really happy you're all here. Because it's nice to know I'm not just up here talking to myself, even though I have not really spent a lot of time paying attention to you in the chat, and I apologize. And yes, Turtle, this is it. I demand a mistrial because I screwed up pretty much every single time, you know, every single time. All right. I'm going to go back and look at some questions here. Basically, though, I want to wrap up in saying that That was the last witnesses. After they brought back Rachel Smith, which they did, the friend, to report again to re-clarify some of the testimony that was given in regards to how the Jane Doe had told the story to her when it happened and the whole thing. It was a collaborative type testimony to support a period of time in the statements that were made. They went over reports again with the detectives back and forth. And I recommend that you read Tony Ortega's back and forth on that, because you're going to find some little things we're going to be talking about next week about that. I'm sure it's going to come up in the prosecution part, but it was, I mean, in the defense's part. The defense actually did state that they weren't sure which of their expert witnesses were going to come forward. If you remember, they had um, Danny Masterson's assistant on the list. Okay. And they also had three expert witnesses. After the reporting from Mindy Mechanic, the expert witness on the prosecution side, Cohen started talking about he doesn't know which ones of his was going to come forward. One of them was toxicologist, which we don't understand why a toxicologist would be called forward if you don't want drugging to be part of the trial. This is what I don't understand about defense attorney Cohen. He doesn't want you to mention that Danny could have drugged the women because there's no toxicology reports and it's unfair. And we agree that would be biased, it would be prejudicial. You don't got backup evidence. We really shouldn't speak of it. Can the women talk about how they felt about it after they did the drink? Absolutely. Can they bring to light that they did have a drink and Danny's the one that gave to them? Absolutely. But no one on that stand is saying they're using the words drugged or anything like that against Danny Masterson. There are no charges against Danny Masterson for it. No one's saying it, okay? And that is smart on Mueller's part, on the prosecution's part, because he knows it's too late to get any of that evidence. They can only talk about, could that have happened? Would that have happened? Does that behavior sound similar to? But that doesn't really stand up very well, and it's very easy to convolute the other way, and it would just confuse the jury. It is better to let the juries make up their own mind about it. Okay. And Cohen doesn't like this at all. Well, why would he bring in a toxicologist to go against it and make it part of the conversation? Why give the jury more to chew on about it? That just seemed odd to me. I don't know about you guys, but that just seemed odd to me. You know, I I must admit to being confused by this defense attorney, you know. You know what? When you see the artist renditions, he seems to come across as untouchable. Always, yes, he did. And I want to show you a couple of other pictures before we go that kind of go along with that feeling. Let me just pull up. Okay. Even coming in and out of court, this is him with his defense attorney, or Philip Cohen, who I wanted to show you is quite a dapper dresser. And Tony Ortega, one of the most amusing parts, this whole thing could be quite not amusing, this trial. But he does focus every day on the wonderfulness of Philip Cohen's dress, and he goes back and forth about it, and he uses it as a little way to make things a little bit lighter. And I have to agree, I mean, the man is never disappointing. Okay, never disappointing in that. But Danny, very serious but calm, very calm. Although I must admit that he does look a bit older to me since this started. He doesn't look as young and fresh. I don't really think it's not wearing on him at all. But I do believe he doesn't want the jury to know it, because when he's in that courtroom, it's a totally different demeanor. This is Philip Cohen, dapper tie, as you can see. He is the lead attorney for Danny Masterson, and the one I talk about the most, because he's the one opening his mouth the most in that court with giving me something to say. This is D.A. Mueller. This is D.A. Reinhold Mueller. Very professional, very sleek. He's been very calm. He's been, I think, doing an excellent job um, for the victims in this case, for the accusers. I think he tries to find that fine line. He has been admonished a few times for going a little too far and trying to get some things in that might be a little on the line. And Judge Almeida's done a good job of pushing him back also. He also is doing his best job to prosecute a very difficult situation. These cases are old. They are very old, okay? And that alone is prejudicial to Danny Masterson right there. At how old they are, and they're coming forward, and they joined all three of them together. And I get that. That's going to be very difficult for Mueller to actually get the jury to agree that he's guilty on all three of these. And sentencing is going to be another thing that's going to be kind of dicey. But from what I understand, the only way that they could bring these forward based on the time frame that they happened and the statute of limitations and the loophole that they're going on is because it's a pattern, because there are three of them, the length of time that it happened, and that he's got to bring them all together to like actually show that that is kind of the way the laws were written, that he could actually prosecute freely with outside of the statute of limitations that it happened. um and the harassment that happened with Scientology, which why we're here so late. um I want to bring up a couple more comments. Yeah. Jujubee, this I read too in an article. I think it was actually one of the ones from it may I want to say the Beast, that I did hear from someone in the courtroom that when the expert testified, and that would be Mindy Mechanic, she was a psychologist with trauma and memory recall. He started to slink down in his chair. Hmm. And Jujubee, thank you. And not just me, right? I am confused by the defense too. I am hoping to understand more when they present their side, which should be starting right after Monday. Now, Judge Almeida said that depending on the witnesses the prosecution brings forward, she's anticipating to be in final statements, closing statements on Tuesday. And I'm like, what? Whoa. Like, who is he bringing forward? Like, I guess he's not. I don't know. He has not. She even said to him, listen, defense attorney Cohen, I'm not asking you to tell me right now. I'm going to give you the weekend to think about it, who you're bringing forward on Monday, and then we will speak to Danny Masterson privately and find out if he's going to testify on his behalf. And you'll be able to tell me on Monday, and we'll go forward with there. But depending on who you bring forward and what we do based on your list, we could be in closing arguments on Tuesday. And she's got a special time frame for them, so she's going to be telling them, the jury, that they may be finishing up early. All right, because she gave them, I think, until the 18th. I think we were talking, but now she's saying, Tuesday of next week, Juju. Yes. And welcome, Tim. The defense will be them looking terrible as they tried to show the victims were drunk and seeking a payoff. And this is what they have been doing during Cross all along. I agree. I don't know how they're going to bring a witness up to the stand to do that more. I don't. Mm. But anyway, oh, so next week we could be finishing up. We could be finishing up. Another thing that I wanted to tell you, mm, is that the hmm, Leah keeps coming up. Mm, Apparently, they're still like really upset, but Leah was very upset that Lisa Marie was not being allowed to testify. She did make a thread about that, but she also, I want to give you the link to this thread right here on Twitter, if you have Twitter. Lisa Marie went in on the disappearance of Shelly Miscavige over the weekend. In For those of you that follow this, I just want you to have the link if you'd like to address it or just to look at it. It's quite long. Um, I don't, that's a good question, Turtle. Hold on one second. Um, no, you can have strong opinions, Tim. I have them also. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can. I'm really want to hear the prosecution's side of this laid out on Monday. And I want to hear the closing arguments because I want to hear where she's coming from, because he really is his defense is confusing me because he seems to keep making these missteps that make Danny look worse. He keeps saying he doesn't want certain things in, and then he does something and it ends up in. I don't know if he's like, I don't know. At this end, I'm wondering if they're going for like bad representation as an appeal. But I can't really say that because he does make valid points and he does seem to be quite in control of the courtroom and quite versed in the law, so it's like waffling back and forth, to tell you the truth. I really do. um I'd like to know what you guys think about that. Will it be a good idea for Masterson to testify? Mm. Well, if he's going to come up there and say that all the women consented, then yes. But how is he going to prove that they did when they said they didn't? Hmm. Yes, Tim, if he testifies, he does get cross-examined, and I don't think he wants to. Okay. The defense is already claiming that the women were inebriated, they're not remembering with consent, well, whatever. He's not saying that. Like, how do you say you actually consented without saying you actually consented? Well, when you ask things like, were your arms held down? Did you say the word? Like, he literally asked each one of them if they said the word no. Several of them have said it repeatedly, even during the act. Okay. Yeah, that's what their testimony is saying. That's how they're testifying, you know. So that wouldn't be wise. He is trying to say that they're colluding together for the civil court and it's all about money. It's all about money. And when pressed on that, several of the Jane Does said, no, it is not about money. It is about the harassment in my family and what's going on. We want it to stop. We want consequence so it stops. They claim they are still being harassed to this day. Right now, they are getting harassed by them. Okay. That civil suit against Scientology. Okay, it's not about the money. How are you going to get money out of Scientology? Like they're going to fight it tooth and nail. You're never going to see a dime. Hmm. I don't think they're foolish enough to think they're going to get. They may get a judgment, but to actually get it, I don't know. Okay. Well, Leah Remini, she's got strong opinions about this too. She has spoken out on this case when charges were first brought out, mhm, years ago, and she still does. She felt that the Scientology is being kept out of this on purpose. She would have her tweets and some of her statements that are being quoted, it does allude that she would really have rather that Scientology stay to focus in this case. But I have to agree with the judge on this. If it's about Danny Masterson and a criminal event, sex, sex without consent, the legal definition of rape, that's what it's about. And Scientology didn't do that. Granted, there is the opinion out there, which I kind of go for. Did they lay down the foundation and the culture and the environment where that could happen without a feeling of consequence? In my opinion, they absolutely did. Are they guilty of that? Absolutely. Should something be brought about that? Yes, I do think so. Only because that is so damaging to so many people. That's not equality. That's like keeping a whole a whole section of their membership based on gender down, being less than. Like, yeah, so do I think that needs to look at? Yeah, but is it part of the trial? No. Only part of it is that the women felt they could not come forward because of it, because of the teachings, because of what they were told, because what was reinforced on them when they tried to report within the system that they were involved in at the time. Within the guidelines of Scientology, they tried to do something about it and they were pushed back and they were held back and they were pushed down. Um, and that's why we're here. But on that, I think I'm going to close up. Um, and I'm going to say that we'll see you next week. Probably Wednesday again, so that we get Monday and Tuesday under our belts. Please go check out Tony Ortega Daily if you'd like to. All the information is down before. I also linked Chris Shelton again because he's a psychologist. He is an ex Scientologist. Also, he has a unique view. He believes in critical and mindful thinking. He is not out there just like blah, blah, bloviating. He's actually giving good information and help to people when he can. So I also recommend checking his channel out on this if you'd like. I've got him linked below too. Um, but yes, please remember, I'm not an attorney. I have no real legal advice to give. I'm looking at this on the outside just like you are, but I have a fascination for the law. I love it. It's what I like to ingest on a daily basis. Not so much this particular scenario, I will admit, but just generally. And I got great respect for it. And I am intrigued by the back and forth between this defense attorney, Philip Cohen, and this particular prosecutor, D.A. Mueller. And I am absolutely in admiration of Judge Almeida and how she's trying to keep it all together. Um, I only give my opinion here based on what I see, and I encourage you all to go out there and get the information yourself. I will link where I get it down below. I'm going to be linking to this particular video a few more articles that I have to fish up the links. The links were so long. I'll have to make like little URLs because they would just like fill that whole box for you. But I'll be adding more articles for you, not just Tony's Ortega's reporting on there, just places for you to check out on your own too if you're interested. So I do believe it'll be Wednesday next week, maybe Tuesday if we go to closing arguments, but I would rather digest all of the reporting on the closing arguments prior. I really don't think. I'll make y'all a nickel bet. I really don't think defense attorney Cohen is going to just let it go to closing arguments on Tuesday. I think he's got a few things going. I think there's going to be motions. I predict motions. I predict a day of no jury and motions before we go to final or closing arguments. I do. I just I don't know. Just based on what I've seen, I kind of sense a little bit of a last ditch effort on someone's part to like bring some legal fortitude into the courtroom and have it dealt with. I just his last stance. It's like a good movie. That's what I picture in my head there. Unfortunately, this is people's lives, and I hope he doesn't do any more. I hope he does his best for Danny Masterson because that's his job. Um, but I'm not so sure we're going to be at closing arguments on Tuesday. But for Judge Almeida, I mean, she wants to keep that schedule. She's going to do what she can. All right. On that, I'm going to head out. Tell you all that I will be on Operator Starsky's Ukraine update stream on the Shills tomorrow. And then, of course, we will have our own little lighter fare on Saturday night. We will probably be doing what the actual flabbergasted whatever's been going on social media and whatnot kind of thing on Saturday evening. Okay, and then back on the shows on Sunday for Uncalled For with Amy Hogan, with for a serious conversation. We've been talking politics lately, the Iran protests, the involvement of China and Russia together in some of the efforts over in Ukraine, kind of deep kind of stuff like that. But if you're interested, I'll be putting all of that on my community tab. And with that, I'd like to say good night. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, do those YouTubey things. You know I hate talking about it, so just help me out and go and do it all. um, thank you very much for being here and for actually, making this a little easier for me by contributing with the conversation. Have a great night.